What inspired you to pursue dance as a career?
Ultimately, I really loved teaching. Like, that was my main thing.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode on my podcast, I Was Busy Dancing, where I invite UNL student dancers and have them share about their dance journey and challenges and achievements they have gone through. And for today, I have brought Thea Holtzen. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So could you please share a little bit more about yourself and how you got into dance?
Yeah. So I'm a sophomore UNL student within the dance department. I'm not from Nebraska originally. I'm from Wisconsin, and so I got my start there like when I was like 3, took a ballet class, kind of went from there. I started incorporating a lot of different styles, so that includes like tap, jazz, ballet, hip hop, contemporary, probably about like 3rd or 4th grade, so like 9 years old maybe. Yeah, and it really like just kind of blossomed from there. I really enjoyed not only like the community factor about it, but also just like I liked the different styles and the individuality within like each of them.
And which one did you focus on the most?
I think I probably focused on ballet for the majority of like my youth, but as kind of high school and into college, I've definitely honed in more on tap and hip hop.
What do you enjoy the most about those 3 styles of dances?
So I really love tap because I just like how grounded it is. And I don't know, it's fun to like have your feet be an instrument almost. Like that's something that I find is really just like unique about the style. Hip hop, I really love street style dances. I like it's been a huge influence in my dancing since I've been young. I've always loved watching like street dance and things like that, and it was just always really heavily influenced around me from like around where I grew up and things like that. And then later on, when I was able to, I put myself in those spaces to be more influenced in those spaces, just because I felt like those spaces, especially like in the city near Milwaukee, is where I could hone my artistry the most.
You said street style hip hop. Could you like tell us a little bit more about that?
So when I say street style dance, I don't limit it to like necessarily just hip hop. I feel like especially in the Nebraska area, dance team hip hop is like what's way more popular here, which is just like not the same style as I grew up as. So like when I started teaching hip hop here last year, I was kind of confused and a little shocked to just see like the differences between the two, and like realizing that not everybody, when they take hip hop like in a studio setting, it's not always like more street style hip hop. It's not originated from like Chicago footwork or like West Coast house music or dancing, or like East Coast like breaking, things like that. It's more like jazzy, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. And is that like something that challenged you a little bit, like to learn from?
It definitely challenged me, but I think the coolest thing was it gave me an opportunity to kind of share my interest and experience with other dancers like in the area, just because it is like a more hardcore or like harder just like vibe. And street style isn't like limited to just hip hop. It's also like reggaeton and like heels is usually in that, or like I'm gonna say it wrong, but bachata. Yeah.
Oh, okay. She knows about that.
Like it's just kind of like at least from where I like learned from and like took it, that it just kind of like incorporates a lot of street style dancing. So like dancing that originated from like battles, or like just like communities coming together and really truly sharing like dance as more of like a form of communication rather than like an art form, but it also being like loved as an art form, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you said in your studio you learned a lot of dance styles, and so what is something that like you felt you achieved a lot and then you brought it to the program here?
Something that I think I really excelled in was just definitely like more Chicago style like footwork within hip hop. I personally have not taken all of those styles yet, just because I'm the studio that I like going to for like more of those drop-in street style classes is further away, so it's harder for me to like, it's less accessible for me than just like my regular hip hop class. But I really like incorporating like a lot of fun, fancy footwork into my choreography here, and also just like really honing in on like different tempos within songs and things like that, and like the different drums and all that stuff. I love it.
Who was like your biggest influence for that sort of style?
So my longtime hip hop teacher, Chris Gilbert, Mr. Chris, know him and love him. He is incredible. He's insane. He's worked with so many amazing people, and I'm just so grateful that I had the opportunity to learn from him. He's from Milwaukee, born and raised, and he went out to LA for a while to do some dancing and professional work there, and then he went back to Milwaukee and danced with like the Bucks, and like he does a lot of really cool professional, like he dances with DJs. DJ Mando's a big one in Wisconsin, and he also does a lot with like Summerfest, which is like a giant music festival in Wisconsin, and it's really cool, and he dances on stage, and I love watching him, and I love learning from him because he's just like so wise in the verse of it all.
What are some things you learned about him, like the biggest things?
Well, first and foremost, he's not only an amazing dance teacher, but he's a motivational speaker, and I think that's something that I really thrived when I like learned from him. He just talks about like being your authentic self all of the time, no matter what, and how it's not a mold that you should fit into. It's more of like you apply the movement to yourself rather than fitting into something, which I thought was just like a really beautiful way to put things, and it makes like so much more of an inclusive space for everybody, and it has like no limitations, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, that's like a beautiful like way of saying it. And for your artistic expression, how you want to express in your dances, how would you describe your connection with, how about like hip hop, since that's like one of your like main focuses?
I don't know. I feel like it's so much love, but not only love, but like respect for the art form, because it is not something that is like native to my own culture. It is something that like I learned from people who have like spent their whole life doing it, which I don't know. It's a lot of respect, and I also really like to break it down and understand the history behind it before I take part in something, because I think that's really important to recognize that it's not like most dance styles are kind of, I don't like to word it this way, but like stolen dance forms, because they do take and incorporate a lot of movements from other either like traditional cultural styles or they just like take a lot of elements and then claim it for themselves, which like that's not the case. And I just really like that for the most part, hip hop is like very unapologetically like you can like pinpoint it to like one specific, like this is where it came from, this is what it like this is how it happened, and there's like no denying it. And I think that's really awesome and unique about it, and that's how I try to like show respect for my art form, is just like understanding the history and recognizing that and like trying to honor that to the best of my abilities when participating in it, I guess.
And how do you show that through your movements? Would you say like based off like the history of hip hop, like how do you?
I really like to not only like do them correctly, but one of the things I really like to do, especially when I'm like teaching a class, is if I know the origin of a specific dance move, I love to share that with my dancers. So like there's a lot of like now like TikTok dance moves that are like traditional like house or breaking moves. And so like when I add something in, it's not because it's like popular. It wasn't like because it was popularized on TikTok. It's because it was like traditionally like a house move. And so I just like to incorporate those little bits and pieces because it not only gives respect to the art form, but it also allows like my dancers to learn from that, and then therefore like when we do it, like they know what it's coming from rather than just like it being popularized by like the media.
Yeah, I think TikTok is like a very big platform for like a lot of like dancers to show their own style and even like show that part of the history of the dance style. And how do you think hip hop has shaped your way of like self-expression?
Oh man. I think it's really changed kind of like the influence in how I dance in general, because rather than like first and foremost thinking of like movements that like flow together, I kind of like think of it in more of like a construction way, if that makes sense. Because when I come into my mindset of dancing either hip hop or tap, I come into it with like building blocks almost, rather than just like flowing through the movements. It's like one thing and then another that like connects to it, rather than just like, I don't know, just like very like traditional like ballet mindset of like we're here and then we're here. Like I don't really know how to explain it super well.
Yeah, because do you think you could add like ballet with hip hop, like mesh that together?
Oh man,
In your opinion?
I think you could.
I feel like the flowiness, maybe.
I feel like there are aspects you could mesh. I just think it would be a very alternative form of ballet.
Yeah.
I don't think it would. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question.
It's okay.
I just don't know.
Yeah, because like hip hop, I feel like has so many ways of like moving that you can just freestyle. Like freestyle is a big thing in hip hop. And how's your experience with freestyle?
Oh my gosh, that makes me the most nervous when I freestyle. I think it really depends on like who's around me. So there's a studio in Milwaukee called Salute Society, and I love them so much. Like every time I go there, the energy is just unmatched. Like the people are great. Everyone's so like, yes, let's get it. Let's do it together. Like we're gonna accomplish this. It's gonna be great. Whereas I feel like in a studio setting, it's a lot more competitive, like internally, whether it's intentional or not. It feels more like, oh, me versus you, rather than like us together. And I think when I'm in a space where I feel more comfortable, like, oh, it's all of us together, we're all dancing together, rather than one person goes and then one person goes, like when you're in like a hype circle or whatever. I just think it's so much easier. And if I'm with like my friends too, like who I'm like, we're like vibing out, like we can do it together, that's when I get like that's when I feel the most comfortable in doing it.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I get that.
It's so scary.
Yeah, because we took hip hop class together, and Gloria had that where we're in a circle, and then she just like had us go in and just dance, and I liked it. It was like a good experience, and it got me to just explore different parts of me that I did not know about, like in terms of movement. That I think that was very beneficial as us as dancers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When you choreograph pieces, what's your sort of process of teaching people, or maybe before teaching people?
Like coming up with the choreography?
Yeah.
I really like words. Like that helps me a lot. And I think...
Like the lyrics of the song?
Like lyrics of the song. So one of my favorite rappers, Kendrick Lamar, I did a dance to him through like Orcus's last spring when we did our showcase, and it was DNA. And that, just because that is like my go-to #1 hype song. Like I love listening to that song. And I just like, I love that whole album. But I really I literally broke down and copy pasted like all the lyrics, and then I was like, okay, what can I do to like represent this, and like how can I say it without saying it, type of thing. And I think that's something that like my mentor Chris, he does a lot, and so that's kind of a trait that I broke off of. But also I just think lyricism, especially Kendrick, his lyricism is beautiful, and I love showcasing that, because when you're listening you don't always hear it, but like if you do a movement that's like going along with it, you're like, oh, I didn't even catch that, that's brilliant, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Kendrick Lamar is like very poetic, honestly, with his lyrics. So I
think he has a Pulitzer.
Really?
Yeah, I think he got a Pulitzer for his, I don't know which album, but I think he did, because he's just awesome like that.
Yeah, he's an incredible rapper, and it helped you come up with something based off the lyrics, which I didn't know. Like, I usually go off with the beat, but
I do that a lot too. So like I love incorporating lyrics, but I also love going off the beat, because normally in a lot of rap songs there's like the melodic like beat that goes with like the lyrics, and then there's like an underbeat of like boom 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 boom, or like something like that. And I like hitting those like small beats that you kind of like forget about.
Yeah,
because it just kind of, it's like a showstopper moment, like, whoa, you hit that, like that looks really clean.
In some past choreographies you've written, how was your experience with those? Like maybe one that you can remember of?
Oh my gosh, it's so scary and difficult, because I get really self-conscious about, especially hip hop, because I'm like, maybe I'm not doing this in the best way that I could, but honestly, it's self-expression. Like it's boundless. So I try my best to like just really, no matter what happens, like the vibes are up. Like it doesn't matter about like who you are, what's happened in your past, like it's right here in the moment that matters, and like we're gonna have a fun time and it's gonna be lit. Like that's what I really try to focus on.
That's interesting. And are you currently in one of like the student dance projects?
I am.
And I don't think you can say anything, but like right now, like how is your experience going with that?
It's awesome. I really enjoy it. It's fun to be in like see different people's creative processes. This is my first year like participating in it, and I would say I feel like I put a lot of pressure on myself to have a similar creative process as other people, but recently I've just kind of had to take a step back and realize that like my creative process is going to be completely different from someone else's, and that's okay. If we both like get it done and get the result that we want, like that's what matters. So it's definitely been a learning experience for sure.
So moving on to like college, what inspired you to pursue dance as a career?
Ultimately, I really loved teaching. Like that was my main thing. I assisted taught and substitute taught my junior and senior year of high school at my hometown studio, and I loved it. I just loved the community that was built. I loved the positive influence on competition and kind of that mindset that I lived in for high school, like during my high school years. And I feel like that's not a very common experience amongst like most competitive dancers. And so that's something that I really like to hone in on and kind of like share with my dancers. And I truly just love teaching, and I love choreographing. And I think, when you grow up in a dance studio, like those are formative years. Like that's stuff that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And you're really like, you're the home away from home for those kids. Because most of the time, like I went from school to dance, and like I spent the rest of my night at dance. Like that was my second home. Like I basically lived there. But it's incredible, and it's an amazing experience and I just love to like share that with other people and be the one to help you get to your goal within your dance journey.
And since in this program there's a whole bunch of like classes you can take, I know most of them are like modern dance courses, and there's one hip-hop class. And so which one do you think really impacted you the most?
That's a hard question. I think technically speaking, probably advanced modern, which is what I'm in right now, just because I'm learning a lot more about just like the technical side of modern and how things and like the inner workings and things like that. But just like shaping me as a dancer, I would say probably intermediate, just because we had a really amazing we had a really amazing professor who was a guest professor, and she really tied in like different aspects of just the world into modern dance, which I thought was really cool and unique. And I felt like it wasn't just applicable to modern, but it was also applicable to a lot of other dance styles. And the way that she just like connected not only like the environment and like the people around you, but also like different art in the world. Like I just thought it was a really cool experience, and there was a lot of things to think about after I was done with that class.
Yeah, I enjoy the modern dance classes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of exploration that I never knew about. What challenges did you face when like transitioning to like a studio sort of environment to like a college type of environment?
I would say modern was the biggest challenge. I had a really hard time adapting to it at first. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a very stubborn person, and I'm not super great with change, especially when I feel like I know what's best for me. And I wasn't loving it so much at first, just because I thought, people kind of think like, oh, modern dance is kind of strange, it's kind of funky, like whatever. But there's a lot of really cool, beautiful ways that modern can be interpreted and like used through. And like improvisation is a huge thing that I think I learned from. I hated improv when I first came to it, and now I feel so much more comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, we mentioned about freestyle and hip hop, and then there's improvisation and like modern dance. How would you describe your experience with both those?
I think something that I found really clear in the hip hop class that we took was that it was a way more like modern take on hip hop that I had never really truly experienced. So it felt more like, at least from my perspective, it felt more like a modern class with like elements of hip hop intertwined within it. Just because of like the way it was structured, and also like the movements we did were a lot more interpretive rather than like, oh, you do this here. There was less structure to it, which I think I found fairly challenging, which is something I find challenging within like freestyling of both. I like incorporating elements of like really like hitting beats, but also like flowing into them within like my modern freestyle as well as my hip hop freestyle. But like I said, in hip hop, my brain is more like building blocks. So it's more like, oh, I can do this, and then I can go into this, and then it'll be this. Whereas modern, I'm just kind of like, la, 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 like in my head. I feel like that makes no sense. But
No, I
like, I'm just like, okay, this feels cool and this feels good. Like sometimes I do it based off of like, if like my hip's really hurting that day, I'll kind of just like do whatever and not like really worry about my hip. But like, and like you can do more like just like very, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot more creative freedom to modern. There's a flow to modern that's just different than hip hop in my brain, in my opinion. And that's where I get kind of like stuck between the two. And I think that's where our hip hop class really like honed in on. And so in that way, it was harder for me to kind of like combine the two rather than keeping them like separate things. If that makes sense.
And what are some things you hope to like strengthen more?
I would definitely say like freestyle, and as well as just like connecting my movement in a less like structured way, because it doesn't necessarily need to be structured. It can be whatever you would like it to be. It's just it's kind of breaking down that mindset that I've carried for so long in a way, just like being more optimistic and like opening my eyes in the world of dance rather than like separating everything into like different styles and categories. Like dance is dance.
You said that you work more like in hip hop, like building blocks. And so how do you work with that when you collaborate with other people?
Oh man. I think the people who I've like truly collaborated with, I've been dancing with for so long that we kind of like know each other's brains really well. Like the main example I can think of is my friend Emily back home. We danced together all growing up, and we go to these like drop-in hip-hop classes together in Milwaukee, and sometimes we'll have like little bits where we like get to make up stuff together, and then she'll be like, oh, can we do something with this? And I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this after it. And like we just kind of like build off of each other, but we still keep in that like building block mindset in my head. But a lot of times when I collaborate, I look for other people to fill in the gaps. I'll like propose like, oh, let's do this move, this move, this move. And they'll be like, okay, let's connect it here and here, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I do struggle with like the transition bits.
What has been the most rewarding aspect throughout your past in like the studios and all that?
I would say sense of community and meeting new people. Like I've really loved gaining new friendships and relationships because of it, because it is such a communable like dance style. I just love that aspect of it. Like there's so many different elements that go into hip hop, and people are really interested in hip hop for way different reasons. Like someone could really love like street fashion, and like they want to incorporate that into their dance, and like really like when they wear really awesome outfits and they're like playing with like all the different like ways you can move with that, I find really cool. And then other people are like really hit on like very like technical, intricate movements, and I just think it's really interesting to see how everybody kind of finds their little bit of niche within the whole, like the style as a whole.
What sort of technical aspects of hip hop do you mostly utilize in your pieces or the way you express in your dances?
I would say footwork's my biggest one. Like I just excel in that, I guess, in a way. Like that makes sense in my head a lot, whereas some people it's a lot trickier. But like where I, on the other hand of that, like where I struggle is connecting the feet to the hands, like the feet, the legs to the upper body. So like I can do a lot of funky stuff with like one or the other, but like doing them at the same time, multitasking, that's where you lose me. Like I get that I have to practice that over and over in order to like get it. And I think when I don't get something right away, I get really frustrated with myself. But patience is just, yeah.
So you think those like studio classes, is it studio classes or and the hip hop class you took now is like strengthening more or like helping you improve on those things?
I would say in different ways, yes. I think doing more advanced like street style classes are really what strengthen that. I think I did gain a different sort of like connection between like when I did take like the hip hop class here, but I think most of my strengthening comes when I just learn from different choreographers rather than the same person, because most of the time when I do go take classes, it's Chris's class. So I like to, when I do challenge myself and take other people's classes, I really enjoy that, because it really does add, because everyone's style is different, and so it really does add an extra level of like connection between the two.
How would you describe the community here with the community in your studio?
It's a different kind of community. I think the amount of time you get in college versus like your hometown studio is very different. Obviously, I've had like 6 or 7 years with those girls versus, or like those dancers versus the dancers in the department here. But, you know, I just like socially, I'm more around the people in the dance department. Like, for instance, Sierra, I met her at a dance class. We ended up being roommates for like throughout freshman year, like because we met through dance, and like that really strengthened our connection. But it's different in the way that I think I separate like my fun dance in a way from my academic dance, and I have a hard time meshing the two together, because the reason I do this is because I love it and it's fun, but sometimes I put a way more academic lens on it, and so I feel like my friendships when it comes to the UNL department have to be like more professional and more like sophisticated, whereas like my friendships back home are kind of like crazy because like we knew each other when we were like in middle school to now. It's like it's just a different association with people.
What do you hope to accomplish after like graduating? Like, you know that you hit maybe some goals that you've been wanting to accomplish from?
I think my main hope is to keep teaching, for one, and also I would love to own my own studio one day, or at least be like a director of a studio. That is like my like dream job in a way, just because I'm so passionate about teaching, and like I truly do love it, and like that is the thing I love most, and I love interacting with students, and like I love being able to hear about their days and like them like coming to me being like, this was really hard today, but like I'm excited because I'm at dance now, and like we're gonna have a fun night. And I'm like, yeah, you should be, like this is fun, like we're gonna have a great time. And I think being that mental escape and like mental break for people is really important, especially with so many different social influences that are so hard on people's mental health. Like people, whether it's a sport you play or whether it's dance or whether it's like band or whatever, like your coach, your teacher, your director, like those are the people that like you really do trust at the end of the day. And it's like I really appreciate when kids come to me and like trust me with, you know, their time and like their energy, because they could be doing something else right now, but they're choosing to spend it here with me. And like that's amazing. So I want to take that to the fullest opportunity and like give them the best outcome that I can possibly give them.
What sort of dance styles do you want to put in that studio? Like bring?
Well, probably most like basic styles like ballet and jazz and contemporary or lyrical and hip hop and tap. I think my talents will probably lie mostly in the like contemporary hip hop tap realm, whereas I'd probably entrust someone else to do the ballet just because I enjoy it. I really do. It's just I know that it's just not my skill set when it comes to teaching or performing. So, and that's okay.
That's okay. Well, I hope that you accomplish that and you have your own studio. And maybe I'll hear from it on maybe someday.
I hope so. Maybe. We'll see. Otherwise, I'm okay just teaching for now.
What are your long-term goals as a dancer?
Oh my gosh. I've never been super passionate about like commercial dance, just because I think it can be very mentally and physically taxing. And there are some like physical limitations that I've had to work around in certain ways. So I just don't think it would be super sustainable for myself. But I'd love to be a part of like a dance company or a hip hop crew for like a year and like do some really cool performance opportunities, or just at least try to do something cool along those lines. I think there's a lot of opportunity for dancers, especially hip hop dancers, and it would be awesome to try to do at least like one or two of those things before I kind of like focus on like settling down and like staying in one place. But that would be awesome, but I don't know if it would be 100% achievable, but I'm sure gonna try. So. If
it would be achievable, who would be those artists that you'd want to like work with?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's a guy who actually teaches at the studio in Milwaukee I go to. He danced in the Super Bowl, the last Super Bowl performance. And like
Usher?
yeah.
Oh,
And
really?
like that would be insane to like be a backup dancer for anybody, but like Super Bowl would be awesome. Kendrick would be incredible. Honestly, anyone who really wants to utilize dance, even like Taylor Swift's backup dancers are like incredible, and just like being a backup dancer on tour on a stage, that would be awesome. Period. Point blank. I don't really care. Well, I do care a little bit who it's for, if I like them or not. But I just think even be able to like have the chance at an opportunity like that, I would take it in a heartbeat.
From like your experience in your studio, what are some things that you have learned from and experience that you still want to continue bringing into your dance journey?
Definitely like the healthy mindset that I was taught with. It's incredibly important not to compare yourself to others, especially when you're put in a more competitive situation, because it's not your self-worth against their self-worth. And it's not even necessarily about your skill level versus their skill level. Mm-hmm. It's more of honestly what the creative director of whatever project you're going for wants. It's based off of who they believe would be the best fit, given what they have seen in that, 3-hour max audition or like video audition. Like it's not even, it's your self-worth isn't based off of how well you can dance, how high your leg can go, how clean you can make this jump look. Like your self-worth comes from the fact, like it just does not rely on that. And I think that's something that really helped me in the scope of things, to not really give myself that kind of comparison with other people.
Well, thank you for coming today. Where can we find you if you want to say your Instagram?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you for having me, first of all. My Instagram is at Thea Holtzen. Same with every other social media I have, because it's a really uncommon name.
I'll link the podcast Instagram on Spotify and YouTube, and make sure to continue watching the episodes each Tuesday. Bye, guys.